Welcome to the TMDSAS podcast mini-sode series. In this episode, we'll focus on several different aspects of the application and hear directly from the admissions deans on how information is processed and how you as the applicant can put your best foot forward. Joining us today is the Associate Dean for Admissions at the Texas A&amp University College of Medicine, Mr. Filo Maldonado, and the Associate Dean for Admissions and Diversity at the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center School of Medicine, Dr. Felix Morales. Mr. Maldonado and Dr. Morales return to talk about their advice for non-traditional students. In this episode, we'll talk about why activities and experiences are still important for non-traditional students, and why you should seek advice from a health professions advisor. We also discuss about how important it is for you to tell your story in a concrete and deliberative way in your application. Let's get started. Mr. Maldonado, what advice do you have for our non-traditional applicants?
Now, when I talk in terms of the non-traditional applicant, they're varying definitions. So if you've been out of school for just a year, you might be labeled as non-traditional, but I still kind of lumped in with the traditional applicants because they're not that far out from their undergraduate education. The ones that I'm referring to are those that are older than the average age. The average age typically is 23 or 24, and instead we have maybe an applicant who is in their 30s or 40s or even 50s. Has been out of school maybe 10 or more years, and they're in a completely different career. So that's a different kind of non-traditional applicant. And so in our medical school, we see about maybe 20 up to 22% of our entering class of students that fall into that category, interestingly enough. And so we're seeing more of those applicants who have had other careers or who were veterans in some instances, or paramedics, for example, or worked in industry in some capacity or in business, and even in some instances were attorneys. So they represent any number of careers or in walks of life. So I hope that will help some of those that are out there that they're seriously considering medical school. In terms of the activities or experiences that we're seeking, it's still important for them to make a good effort, strong effort at acquiring those experiences. Sometimes we see some non-traditional students focus more on academics, which is understandable. But especially if they're already not in a healthcare field of some sort, if they're employed in that capacity, that they may sometimes become lacking experience, especially in a healthcare capacity or even in the community. So I think it's important that even if they're non-traditional, given their circumstances, that that's an expectation that admissions committees still have, that they're doing their best to affirm that this is truly the direction that they want to go with life, and that they're making a strong effort at acquiring those experiences. The other thing is that I think is important is for them not to be in such a hurry to jump right into the mix, especially if there are serious gaps. So another piece of advice would be get some advice. Either go if they're already if they started with their academic work at a college or university, then to seek the help of a health professions advisor there, or to contact one of the medical schools and actually pay them a visit. I've had many non-traditional students come to my office and ask if they could visit to discuss what their plans are and what might be the best options for them in terms of not only doing their coursework, but their timeline in applying. So that's an important thing to discuss with a non-traditional applicant. is that they're coming in with a seemingly robust application. It not filled a lot of gaps. And not only do they have the academic work, but are also making good progress on gaining the experiences that we're looking for. The other thing that's, I think, important is that they need to tell us their story. In other words, they really have to be clear about their circumstances, the challenges perhaps that they've had over time, depending on where they are, and that their motivation is crystal clear because they're obviously making a rather important decision in their lives and that could conceivably disrupt their family in some way, especially if they're married and have children, and the sacrifice they're obviously going to make. And putting that into perspective is going to be particularly important. So talking to someone who can give them some insight into the rigor of the process, and that it's just not about getting the coursework under your belt. It's about how convincing you are that you're ready for this next stage of training.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that's going to give some comfort to a lot of applicants who aren't really sure what happens after they're labeled with that title of non-traditional. I'm glad you had that number ready so that applicants know that they're not alone in this. Dr. Morales, what advice do you have for non-traditional applicants?
The question, and I just, like I said, recently came back from the DFW swing in which I had an opportunity to speak to, several non-traditional types of applicants. The best advice I can give them is, and we understand that, that life happens and that you're, probably working, or as just some traditional applicants that I met who were parents already and they're having to, make sure that you're, going back to the, personal characteristics or background essay, make sure you're documenting those things that you're going through in regards, because when we start reviewing your application and we notice gaps, like research or leadership positions, we're going to start asking why. But make sure you're documenting on that personal characteristics. Hey, these are the reasons why I've been, I'm applying, and why I might not have certain sections of the application, completely full like other students might have. And then the other thing too is often with the non-traditional types, grades can oftentimes be an issue, but more importantly, you want to make sure that if you feel like that the grade section might be, or the metrics might be not as strong as the more traditional type, make sure that you explain fully, why that's occurred and what's led you to this decision point in your life to say, hey, I want to pursue this, this career path now in my life. And then also just making sure that, in regards to MCAT and things like that, that you are, putting some time aside to prepare for that, because often that might be, a breaking point for a lot of these students. And just make sure you're developing some time and some scheduling some time to prepare for that test as well.
What does a non-traditional student look like on the other end of the admissions process once they're in school?
Once they're in school, more times than not, you see the students being the leaders of a medical school class, because they have those life experiences behind them. Oftentimes, a lot of them have been leaders in whatever particular business area or healthcare industry area or anything like that they've been a part of. And I can share with you, some stories, because I'm obviously, tied into our AFMET program here at Texas Tech, and it seems like time and time again, some of our best students, in particular in that program, have been those non-traditional type of students who've been, out of college for a few years, who have been working somewhere, and I can share with you too that a majority of those students who go through our AFMET program are part of the leaders of the residency program on the opposite end after they graduate, and it seems like inevitably one of them is always going to end up being the chief resident type, which just kind of speaks to their, obviously to their background and to what they've done. And so, like I said, I love the non-traditional students just because, they carry a level of maturity that we know is going to help them be successful in medical school. And also, I always use the word grit. They have that grit about them that they know that whatever personal issues that might have led them not to apply at an early age, now they have that mindset of determination, that grit that's going to get them through medical school.
I want to reiterate what Mr. Maldonado mentioned, in that there are plenty of non-traditional applicants out there. You are not alone in this journey. You mentioned that Texas A&M College of Medicine gets up to 20 to 22% of non-traditional students. That's a pretty big number once you get to think about it. So don't despair, there is hope for you. To get you started on the right path, it's important for you to seek out a health professions advisor. They're going to be someone who can walk you through each step of the application process and customize it to your experiences. If you are not currently enrolled at a university or are enrolled at a school that does not have a health professions advisor, check out the link in the description of this episode that'll take you to the National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions, or NAP. This organization is comprised of advisors of the health professions from the entire country. And so if you are looking for a health professions advisor, you can follow this link and send them an email asking to be paired with a health professions advisor who's volunteering their time to students who do not have access. Finally, Dr. Morales brings up a wonderful point about what a non-traditional student looks like after the admissions cycle. So once a non-traditional student is involved at the medical school, for example, he's noted that these non-traditional students are the leaders in the classes, and they are the ones that are most likely to step up and take charge, and that comes from the experiences that you as a person bring. So really sit down and assess what qualities, what strengths you bring, and start anticipating how you can use those strengths to make you not just a better applicant, but in the long run, a better student and a better healthcare provider. You have the grit and you have the maturity. Now it's time to show that to the admissions committees. The TMDSAS podcast is a proud affiliate of the MedEd Media Network, your source for informational, inspirational, and motivational pre-med podcasts and more. Check us out at mededmedia.com. If you have any questions or comments about this episode of the podcast, we invite you to join the conversation in our online communities linked in the description of this episode. On behalf of everyone here at TMDSAS, we'd like to wish all of our current and future applicants all the best of luck. That's all for this episode. We'll talk to you later.